President Zelensky says more than 10 million Ukrainians are without power after Russia's latest missiles.
US President Donald Trump and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin agreed during a phone call on Tuesday to see.
And Vladimir Putin, let me take you through the lines that are emerging. They are coming from the Kremlin at the moment.
Russia, this country with a huge imperial legacy and enormous resources, is paying an increasingly heavy price for its arrogance in the war with Ukraine since 2022. Today, Russia in flames is not just a figurative expression. For the Kremlin, the Ukrainian army strikes on a vast swath of Russian territory, from strategic refineries in the remotest corners of the country to air bases around Moscow, have turned the situation into a nightmare. Moreover, Russia itself is responsible for this situation, having tried to destroy Ukraine's electricity and heating infrastructure with brutal attacks targeting civilian areas. The Kremlin now sees that the same pain is being felt on its own soil, especially in early 2025. Unprecedentedly large-scale airstrikes, drone and missile raids began to devastate the Russian military's logistical and energy infrastructure. This cycle was further complicated by the possibility of a ceasefire.
Согласны с предложениями прекратить боевые действия. Но исходим из того, что это прекращение должно быть.
When Russian missiles rained down on Ukrainian cities again, just hours after Vladimir Putin had stalled the international community by saying, "Let's have a ceasefire if you wish," Kiev decided to retaliate by launching a much larger wave of attacks on Russia's vulnerable points, from Bryansk to St. Petersburg, from Moscow to Saratov, from Kursk to Krasnodar. Ukraine's indigenously developed missile and drone technology was used to strike. Moreover, because these attacks target Russia's lifeblood, its oil and gas infrastructure, the pipes that supply oxygen to the Kremlin's war machine, are being cut. The Russian army, financed by energy, is being hit at the source of its money. Ukraine's emerging capabilities are playing a role in creating disastrous situations for the Russians. The Ukrainian military, which previously mostly relied on HIMARS and similar Western systems to fire behind the front lines, now also relies on innovative technologies such as its own Neptune cruise missiles, long-range drones, Kamikaze boats, and FPV drones. The Neptune was originally designed as an anti-ship missile, but Ukrainian engineers have extended its range to attack land targets. Now, we have a missile with a range of up to 1,000 kilometers and the ability to overcome Russian air defenses. The Engels 2 airbase attack is a striking example of this. Similar tactics are seen in many facilities from Crimea to Krasnodar. Ukraine surprises Russian air defenses with a massive drone strike, followed by pinpoint strikes with Neptune or other cruise missiles. These strikes, which come in different types, at different altitudes and speeds, are not always met by Russian defenses. This allows the Ukrainians to hit targets up to 1,000 kilometers from the Russian border. According to various reports, Ukraine's attacks have caused more than $1 billion in damage to Russia's energy infrastructure in just 6 to 7 months. So why does Russia appear so vulnerable? Could Ukraine's growing capabilities turn the tide of the war completely? First of all, let's take a look at the recent events in the Russian Federation. The first stop on our route is Krasnodar. Drones attacked the Kamikaze oil transshipment point in Krasnodar region 3 days apart. As a result of the explosion, the oil tank was depressurized, and a large-scale fire broke out. It is stated that 3 drones crashed into the oil tanks, and some rescue workers were injured and hospitalized. According to Russian officials, around 500 people, 4 fire trains and authorities from various regions of Russia have joined the efforts to extinguish the fire. Local authorities have warned residents not to go outside. In the video posted on social networks, one of the eyewitnesses or rescue workers says that fire equipment and firefighters stopped trying to extinguish the plant in the morning. Russians waited there helplessly for all the stored oil to burn. The Kavkazskaya transshipment point plays an important role in transporting oil to Novorossiysk and exporting it abroad. It facilitates the transfer of Russian oil, with an annual capacity of 6 million tons. by rail transport to the Caspian Pipeline Consortium's pipeline system. The complex includes a railway oil terminal and a 15.7-kilometer connecting pipeline to the Kropotkinskaya oil pumping station. According to Russian media reports, it is unlikely that the facility will be restarted in the near future. The Caspian Pipeline Consortium, the operator, is currently carrying out restoration work. Another pumping station in the region, Kropotkinskaya Station, was attacked on the night of February 17, 2025. After the attack in February, Transneft reported serious damage and a reduction of oil pumped from Kazakhstan by about 30%. The second stop on our route is Tups. A large fuel tank was hit in a drone strike. Video and photos of the fire at the facility have been released. The strike at the refinery took place after 02 count local time. Residents of the city heard about 10 loud explosions on the plant's grounds. Apparently, shortly after that, air raid sirens sounded in the city and a fire broke out at the refinery. The governor of Krasnodar territory, Veniamin Kondratiev, confirmed the midnight drone strike on the Tuapse oil refinery, saying that a fire broke out in one of the gasoline tanks. According to the official, by 5 a.m., the fire had spread to an area of over 1,000 square meters. A total of 121 people and 39 pieces of equipment were involved in fighting the fire. Tuapse oil refinery is one of the largest oil refineries in Russia. It is located in the city of Tuapse in Krasnodar Krai. The company is part of Rosneft and specializes in primary oil refining. The refinery has a processing capacity of about 12 million tons of oil per year, the main products of which are petroleum distillates, fuel oil, diesel fuel and aviation kerosene, 90% of which is exported. This Russian-owned facility is of strategic importance due to its proximity to the Black Sea and the oil terminal. The third stop on our route is the attack on the main gas pipeline control center in Saratov. The attack was carried out by a Lyuty Kamikaze drone. Footage posted on social networks shows the drone diving towards the facility, while workers and passers-by watch and record the incident. Saratov Governor Roman Busagin confirmed the attack and reported damage to non-residential facilities, but did not specify which enterprise was attacked. Russian social media revealed that the target was the linear production control center of the main gas pipelines in the city of Petrovsk, 600 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. The Petrovsk main gas pipeline's linear production control center is a subsidiary of PJSC Gazprom. It is responsible for transporting natural gas in 7 directions and supplying gas to settlements in the Saratov and Penza regions. The control center consists of 21 structural subdivisions and serves 1,144 kilometers of pipeline. The presence of 5 compressor workshops and powerful gas pumping units ensures the transportation of up to 90 million cubic meters of gas per day. Our next stop was the capital, Moscow. Russian news channels broadcast video and photos of the aftermath of the attack on the Oka Center oil depot in the town of Serpukhov in the Moscow region. In the footage recorded by an eyewitness, dense black smoke is seen rising from the oil depot in the early morning. The Ukrainian General Staff said the Moscow oil refinery has the capacity to process 11 million tons of oil a year and supplies 40 to 50% of the capital's gasoline and diesel needs. The destruction of such facilities puts Putin's military in a logistical deadlock. It also causes significant damage to the state budget. This is because oil exports are one of Russia's biggest revenue streams. The Kirishi Nefteyorgsk Intez refinery, for example, is a huge facility in the Leningrad region that processes West Siberian Volga-Ural oil. A strike there alone would mean a loss of millions of dollars. Soon after, the Novokuybishevsk oil refinery in the Samara region was also targeted. The production of this facility again meets Russia's main fuel needs. The attacks on the St. Petersburg refinery and refineries around Moscow also show a clear strategy to hit critical points that supply fuel to Russia's largest cities. We can touch your biggest refineries. We will make you pay for what you have done to us in the most crucial place, Ukraine is saying. In addition, the Astrakhan gas processing plant, the Volgograd refinery, the Ryazan oil refinery have also been heavily attacked. The Volgograd oil refinery stopped production for a week after the attack. The plant then operated at 60% of its capacity, but its full restoration may take a month and a half. The plant's revenue in 2023 was almost $777 million. That is, its daily revenue amounted to $2.1 million. Assuming that it will operate at only 60% of its original capacity for the remaining 23 to 38 days, the Volgograd oil refinery will lose another $20 to $32 million. Total losses will reach $35–47 million. At the Ryazan oil refinery, fuel oil deliveries were stopped for 18 days as a result of the attack. Rosneft's revenue fell by 85%. Ryazan oil refinery's revenue for 2020 is 26.5 billion rubles. In this case, a 3-week pause cost the facility at least $14.2 million. The most successful attack was on Gazprom's Astrakhan gas processing plant. Ukrainian drones hit the gas condensate processing unit, completely disabling it. Repairs will take up to 6 months. According to Reuters, Astrakhan JGS processed 1.8 million tons of gas condensate in 2024 and produced 800,000 tons of gasoline, 600,000 tons of diesel fuel, and 300,000 tons of fuel oil. The cost of these products amounted to 83 billion rubles, while the plant's revenue in 2024 amounted to 120.9 billion rubles. Analysts believe that the burn unit processes 69% of the products. According to conservative estimates, Astrakhan could lose $456.6 million. If the plant stops completely during this period, losses will reach $662 million. In case of a complete shutdown of the Astrakhan oil refinery for 6 months, the total loss is estimated at $863.4 million. According to International Energy Agency estimates, Russia's total revenues from oil exports in 2024 amounted to $189 billion. Experts estimate that more than 10 important facilities were hit over a period of 6 to 7 months, with total losses amounting to around $1 billion. Ukraine's aim with these attacks is, first and foremost, to cripple the Russian economy and war logistics. It was fossil fuel exports that financed Putin's offensive and partly funded the defense industry. Although the European Union has partially reduced its energy purchases from Russia, Russia continues to export energy, to a certain extent, through agreements with countries like China and India. But when refineries, pipelines, pumping stations and storage sites are burned or damaged, production and export plans are disrupted, prices fluctuate, and Russia is sometimes forced to offer extra discounts to consumers. This discount drastically reduces the price of a barrel of Urals oil and reduces the state's tax revenues. Declining revenues at a time when war expenditures are increasing are creating a deficit in the budget. Russia is limiting the money it can allocate to its army. Thus, Ukraine is saying, "If you hit my infrastructure, I will empty your wallet." In addition, it also creates a moral collapse within Russia. Because the question, "We started the war, but why are our refineries and bases burning?" causes discomfort among the civilian population. Even though state propaganda says, "Ukraine will be occupied and liberated. We will repel NATO." When the flames rise to the sky in critical places like St. Petersburg, Samara, and Ryazan, citizens are worried. Are we not safe? Military experts also ask, how can Russia's air defenses ignore so many drones and missiles? I thought the S-400s were great. This creates a series of problems with diplomatic, psychological, and logistical dimensions. Although the Kremlin, of course, claims that everything is under control, videos and photos from the field make the picture undeniable. The attack on the Engels 2 airbase perhaps reflects this picture most concretely. This is where Russia deploys its strategic bombers. Ukraine struck the base with long-range missiles, causing huge explosions in the arsenals and destroying expensive missiles such as the Kh-101 and Kh-555. Analysts say that this attack alone cost Russia $500 million in losses. And if one remembers that those bombers were used to hit Ukrainian cities, one can understand why Kiev targeted them. It is sending a message that, "I will hit the base that bombs me." This weakens Russia's offensive capability. Many observers say Russia has now realized that even a nuclear bomber base is not completely safe. This is a critical breakdown in military strategy. The Soviet legacy of massive air bases and missiles were the pillars of Moscow's deterrence. Now, if a handful of drones can penetrate this deterrent, the Russian state is losing credibility. The Crimea and Krasnodar attacks confirm a similar fate. Ukrainian operations against arsenals, air defense radars and naval assets, such as tugboats in Crimea, are undermining Putin, who says, "I will keep Crimea completely in my hands." Russian assets in Crimea are under constant threat from drones and missile strikes. At the same time, the burning of the Tuapse refinery in the Krasnodar region and the partial shutdown of the CPC pipeline have led to a reduction in exports. At one point, Russia had to announce, "Shipments have stopped until we repair this line." This means that Ukraine has an impact mechanism far beyond the front line. The more than $1 billion in energy infrastructure damage that Russia has lost in 6 or 7 months may not seem like a gigantic figure, but what really matters are production disruptions, export disruption, repair costs, and disruption of the logistics chain. All these create a multiplier effect. Add to that the morale and psychological impact, and you have a very damaging balance sheet for Putin. Russia can intensify its defenses to stop these attacks, but its success is not guaranteed because of the vast geography and Ukraine's subtle tactics. Every day there are reports of fire at X refinery, explosion at Y pipeline. So much so that the Russian government has resorted to hiding data. They hide diesel and gasoline production statistics from the public. They don't fully disclose export figures. They talk about energy truce, but in reality, they continue to attack. This double standard is also provoking a backlash from their own public opinion. There are independent experts who speak of a 23% drop in budget revenues, which the finance ministry tries to deny. But on paper, the numbers don't lie. Because, while Russia is partially deprived of its biggest customers in Europe, it has to find new ones. Even if it does, transportation, insurance, and logistics costs are rising. As logistics facilities are hit, these costs grow even more. As a result, Russia's cash flow is weakening and it is becoming harder to finance the army. Ukraine, of course, suffers similarly. Russia continues to bomb its civilian cities mercilessly, and Ukraine is struggling to defend its infrastructure. But the phrase "Russia in flames" reflects the fact that Kiev is now capable not only of defense, but also of offense. On its 3rd anniversary, this war has unexpectedly escalated and seems to have erased the notion of a front line. The war itself has spilled over into Russian territory. If Moscow wants to put a ceasefire back on the agenda, it must answer the question, why doesn't it stop shelling Ukrainian cities? Because Ukraine behaves in a, "if you shake one hand and shoot missiles with the other, I will burn your refineries" manner. This dynamic makes it difficult for Russia to set a ceasefire trap, as before. This picture shows that Ukraine can put Russia in a difficult situation even without Western support. Yes, US and European arms aid is critical, but Ukraine has also deployed its own missiles and drone innovation. In other words, Kiev has long since ceased to be a helpless country on its own. Russia's strategists may not have foreseen this years ago. The easy takeover of Crimea in 2014 and the success of the separatist movement in Donbass made Russia overconfident. Now, in 2025, the situation is reversed. Despite its huge resources, Russia is looking at its refineries in flames and asking, how did we become so weak? Ukraine, on the other hand, is reassured by the thought that Russia has cut its blood vessels. It is unclear what Russia can do in the coming period. Maybe it will intensify its air defense inside. Maybe it will try to intercept drone routes coming from Ukraine. But the geography is vast, and Ukraine is discovering new methods of attack every day. Kamikaze boats at sea, swarm drone attacks in the air, Neptune missiles over land. This diversity puts a lot of strain on Russian defenses. There is also the question of how much resources can the Russian military devote to the defense of its energy facilities. On the front line, they are fighting fiercely with Ukraine. insufficient troops and equipment, economic difficulties, and an indecisive strategy are pushing Putin into a corner. All these developments make it clear that Russia has no other option but a ceasefire. But the final decision rests with the Kremlin. What course Vladimir Putin will take and how he will shape the course of this war will become clear in the coming days.